Okay, I think we're ready to go with building the curves for the back part of the shoe. However, I want to go ahead and prep this scene a little bit so that it's a little more user-friendly as I build these curves. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to rename this mesh op. We'll call this mesh ops saddle. And I'm just going to turn that off for now. I'm also going to rename these curves saddle. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and make a new layer, and we're going to call this curves for counter or foxing, I guess. Now, because of the proportions of the shell back mesh, splitting my viewport horizontally is probably not the best option here. So instead, we could do a vertical split. Now, there's a couple of ways we could do that. We can hold down the Control Shift and the tilde key and bring up a pie menu, and we can split vertically like that. Or, I'm going to get rid of this. Or we can go over to here where this little dot is in the upper left-hand corner, mouse over that, hold down the Control key, and just click and drag down real quickly on the mouse. And that will also split your screen. Now, in order to get rid of the extra split, if we want, we have to go to this little triangle on the right side, go to Viewport Controls, and see, we can go right here to Delete, and that will delete that extra window for us. So we can add and subtract windows at will. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll just do that again. We'll hold down the Control, drag down. Now, if the navigation between the two viewports is linked together, you'll just have to hit the O key and bring up the Options menu. And under the first tab there, Drawing and Control, you will see the independent checkboxes near the center of the panel. Just make sure all of those are checked. Okay, now that our scene is all set up, I think we are ready to start laying down the curves for the back part of this shoe, and make sure that we are on the correct layer, the curves counter layer that we created. And let's see, I think I'm just going to go ahead and choose the standard curve tool. Make sure mesh constraint is on, set the background, check the properties real quick, and make sure tool handle constraint is on. And I'm just going to go ahead and start laying down some points. Now remember, we have to work in a counterclockwise direction in order for the curve fill to work properly. Now I'll go ahead and pause the recording and return as soon as the curve is completed. Alright, I'm done here, and you'll notice, however, that there is no wrapping going on here because we don't have any mesh ops for this curve just yet. And let's go ahead and do that. Now, instead of creating mesh op stack from scratch, I'm just going to go ahead and click on this guy, the one we did for the saddle, and I'm going to right click on that and go down to duplicate, go down to duplicate hierarchy and give it a second, and there it is. Okay, so now we just need to change a few parameters in this. First thing I want to change, however, is the name of the item here, and we'll call this mesh op for counter. There we go. Now I need to change a few parameters here. And instead of the curve saddle, we need to swap that out. Probably notice a lot of strange things going on, and that's because we just need to redirect some of these parameters in this mesh op to address the proper curve and the UV map that we're working with. So I'll just turn everything off for now and just start working from the bottom to the top. Now the next thing we need to do is a UV transform. I'm going to make sure that this is transforming correctly. And we go to the target. This is a shell. So let's click on that to get the parameters up. There we go. UV transform. In the UV map is not the front, but the back that it needs to transform to. Oh, by the way, we have to make sure that the whole mesh operation is active for this to work. All right. And yes, so there we are with our UV transform. That seems to be working for us. If you look closely at the curve on the shoe, you'll notice that the spans between the vertices tend to be dipping below the actual surface of the shoe itself. And this is because I'm going to need a few more vertices on that curve to actually stay above the shoe contours. So if you remember, we worked in a counterclockwise direction here. And when you click on the polygon of the curve and reactivate the curve tool, you have to be sure that you are in add mode and not merely edit mode. There we go. All right, and the same with this one. Click here, put another vertex right there. And yeah, now you can see it's all floating above the surface. It's not sinking down beneath the surface because of lack of vertices. Let's go to look at the curve fill, and I'm going to turn that on, and we have a nice fill right there. Okay, I might want to go up a level, maybe to 7. I want to be careful not to get too dense with this. And another thing, remember in the mesh op for the saddle, we added a set polygon type, and to create a Catmull Clark out of the poly mesh there. But there is a much easier way that I totally forgot about, and that is in the curve fill, there is an option here to set the polygon type there. So you don't need to have a separate mesh op for that. So we can go from face to Catmull Clark right there, and we can just eliminate that other mesh op. And now we can just go ahead and turn on the polygon bevel, and right there, and should be golden. All right, now it's floating a little bit above the surface, and we can go back into our UV transform properties and set the push parameter to maybe something like a negative 0.5 millimeters or something around there. Yeah. So I've now given you enough guidance in this particular lesson to challenge you to go forward and complete the rest of the shoe and create additional shoe panels. So when we join up in the next video, I'll show you how to put everything together and make a nice rendering out of it.